I'm gonna jump into the offense. Let's see, and I guess the first question I have about the offense is I am somebody who loves college football recruiting. One of my passions, I can almost make the argument that I love that as much as covering Colorado football. Maybe it's a 1A, 1B for me. But Connor Wigman, right? He was seen last year at Texas A&M, struggling, right? We've seen that, and again, that was SEC defense he was playing against. I know watching him last year, I think it was the first game against Notre Dame, second game of the year last year. And I was just like, holy cow, how is this guy a 5-star? So we go through, we start watching it, right? And I'm just kind of like, dude, this dude is talented, though. There's no reason for this. There's weapons around you at A&M, all these different. What does he look like through the first 2 weeks, for Houston right now?
I'd say cautious. So for the folks that, in Colorado channel that may not have followed his whole trajectory, 5-star, top 3 kid in his class coming out of high school, top 3 overall, not top 3 quarterback, a top 3 overall kid coming out of his class in high school, commits to A&M and was like supposed to be the next savior of Texas A&M football.
Yeah.
Red shirts, then he comes in and gets hurt his red shirt freshman year, misses most of the season after beating up on some patty cake teams, and then comes in his redshirt sophomore year, and actually gets hurt in the Notre Dame game. He had already played bad for over half of football, but he got hurt in that game, and he's like, I can't watch another year of football. I'm going to try and play. And ultimately, in a very Baker Mayfield-y kind of way, I think kind of hurt his own long-term prospects, lost the starting job, got out with the fan base because they were like, this guy's supposed to save our program and all that. And he is from Houston, went to Bridgeland High School in the Houston area, and it was a coming home party. Like, he announced in December that he was transferring to Houston, and social media lit up. Everyone that was on the team was like, oh my God. Like, there were some big time names that were debating jumping the transfer portal from Houston that decided not to because they wanted to play with Connor. Guys that played with him 7-on-7 and stuff growing up, a star receiver, Stephon Boogie Johnson, was on the same 6th grade flag football team with them. He was like, I can't wait to play with that guy again. And so people were excited about it. You saw the input and the impact, and the transfer portal guys coming in, but he's also a quarterback that has kind of been, through a bunch of coaching changes, and you got to kind of undo a lot. You said you're in education. You got to undo a lot of the stuff from before, right? And so you see some of that. He finally let one rip, a deep ball against Rice in the third quarter. It might have been started the fourth quarter, but he just finally let one rip. And I was like, thank you. That's what we've been waiting on. And that was a big moment, I think, for him mentally. But he's just still like getting back into it. It feels like he hadn't played a lot of ball in the last 3 years because of the injuries and all that. And it takes some time to work back to himself. You go back and watch the Bridgeland tape, though, he looked like a 5-star, like he really did. And so I think it's in there somewhere. Still trying to get it out. You hope you didn't beat it out or break it out with all the injuries. And ultimately, it's good to just have a guy under center the guys are ready to play for. I think they like playing with him is a big deal.
No, absolutely. And I didn't know he got hurt against Notre Dame. I honestly thought, I just know that game was tough to watch. I was watching him, and I was, watching him versus the tape that you've seen in high school where you were like, this dude is like you said, he is a 5-star. This dude is an amazing talent, has a rocket arm. It was just, to me, like, what are we doing? We're, and again, you never know with coaching or whatever it may be. I honestly thought he just got benched a couple weeks later when Marcel Reed. That's honestly what I thought. Is like, this does not look good, right?
And Marcel Reed came in and lit it up too. I should give credit there. Like, when Wigman was not playing well, Marcel Reed came in and did play well, and that's how that went, right? That's the nature of college football now. Now you got to go find a new school, buddy. that's how it goes.
No, and I really do hope he gets it together there at Houston and can, flourish. And like you said, that deep ball, that arm he has, it's pretty. He throws a pretty deep ball. So I'm gonna have to go watch that. As much as I want to tell you that, I've watched Houston this year against Stephen F. Austin and, against Rice. Man, I'm gonna be completely honest. I watched a couple plays, and it was more so on the defensive side where I was like, oh, okay, this guy comes off the tape. This guy looks good. But I've not seen Connor Wigman. So that is just somebody who I have had my eye on since Texas A&M. Just kind of like, when is this talent going to come through? Because he is again, he's a phenomenal talent. So hopefully he does get it figured out there at Houston. And again, I know we're in the Big 12. We play you guys this week, but I'm rooting for the guy. Just, I don't ever want to see any one of these kids fail, regardless, right?
Well,
So
and on the same boat, we'll talk, I'm sure, about Colorado's offense at some point. It's easy to root for a third string quarterback that is now the starter if it's not playing your team, right? So, like, if y'all are playing basically anyone else, like, no, like the third string guy should. This is awesome. Like,
yeah.
I think it's important to not lose sight of that aspect of the storytelling of college football. What we're talking about, it is a fun story. It is a fun story.
No, absolutely. So, yeah, no, thanks for sharing that with about Connor Wigman, and I'm gonna jump to another Connor. So Dean Connors, you're right. Our transferred in from Rice. He had about, I think it was a little south of 800 yards rushing last year, 11 total TDs. Dean looked good so far and I want to say limited carries. And again, we kind of talked about this a little bit before the show, but Stephen F. Austin and Rice, I was kind of like, okay, how many snaps did they actually play? What does that look like? So I think he was averaging, what is it, like 6.8, 6.9 yards per carry or somewhere around there, if I'm correct there.
Yeah, and he ended up averaging over 10 against Rice because he had two big ones. Dean's great, and Dean is a grad transfer. Got to come. He went to Rice initially, so got to stay in the city when he transferred across down to Houston. Full disclosure, he kind of came in thinking he was going to be splitting carries with a guy named Rashawn Sanford, and Rashawn Sanford tore his knee in the last week of camp, and so Dean got thrown into that starting spot and is no longer a sharing carries back. He'll get the bulk of the carries this weekend, and for a couple weekends for here on out, I think they got a skinnier guy that catches the ball pretty well named Stacy Snead. He's more of a pass catcher type running back, but Dean is interesting because I think, and this is totally people projecting stuff when they see a guy with a Rice degree looks like Dean Connors. They think he's going to be like Cam Scatterbo, and he's a lot more jittery than that. He's got a lot more wiggle to him, I think, than people realize. And he's pretty fleet of foot. He burst through on a couple split zone plays against Rice for big gains. And I know Rice isn't like Alabama or whatever, but it certainly was impressive to see, and it was good to see people get in the end zone. So I think he had 2 touchdowns against Rice, or there's 2 scores in the year, which is a big deal for us.
Yeah, no, he's one that again I had my eyes on because he's just seems like a right, and I was thinking, oh, he's from Rice, so he has to be tough nosed. In my head, right? You said that I was like, who is he compared to? Right? I was like, maybe Mike Allstott, and then you said Cam Scatterby. I was like, yeah, Cam Scatterby. You're like, it's nothing like that. So that is one that I was just curious about because right, even in the picture I saw, like his what is it, his Photoshop, whatever it is on ESPN is like. Oh, okay, that's Dean Connors. Okay, I know what we're in for, right? Those kind of things, right?
No,
But that's good to hear.
it is totally a profile. Like he wears the same swag, the minimal extra gear and all that. He can shake, he can boogie, and people aren't quite ready for it all the time.
Yeah, man. Okay, well, holy cow. Well, hopefully the Buffs are watching some film on him this week because, yeah. I thought we were coming in this Cam Scatterby territory there. So, good to know. Good to know. Yeah. What I want to, what do you? I guess what can we expect from Dean Connors this weekend on Friday evening?
So I talk a lot about like having a play you can hang your hat on, right, as an offense, and like what do you do when it's like 1st and 10, just kind of need to start a drive and get going positive yards, or 3rd and 4, what do you know is going to get positive, something you can like lean on, and they become kind of a split zone team for X's and O's folks out there. But I'd imagine that means Dean gets another 15 to 20 carries, and I think that there are going to be a lot of stuff where he at least gets the handoff with direction being between the tackles, and then ultimately tries to hit from B gap to hash number sideline and so on, kind of fall out that way. He's going to get a lot of carries, I would imagine. Stacy Snead, I did mention the other running back. He is a like 6th-year college guy, one of the last handful of those we've got from the COVID years, and he is more adept at catching the ball outside the backfield, but in the Slade Nagel offense, you got to run between the tackles to get the ball. So he'll be up there plugging away some too. But I would imagine you get a heavy dose of Dean this week because unlike Rice and Stephen F. Austin, you probably need to play your best guys for most of the snaps. Whereas Rice, Stephen F. Austin, you probably could have gotten away without it, right? So I'd imagine you see a lot of him running just inside the tackle, really either direction for majority of this one.
No, absolutely. Something to keep our eyes on. And again, that's great insight. I'm curious. this would be, geez, this is right as Big 12 members, the first matchup between Colorado and Houston. And I guess it was just since last year, but it for some reason it feels like over these past couple years that Houston has been a staple in the Big 12. It feels like over for like 5 to 8 years, and that's not the case. I don't know why I feel like that. Maybe it's because I always wanted them to, and then a little bit I liked. Gosh, I loved watching that their basketball team. What is it? I love watching Coach Sampson. One of my favorite coaches ever. And again, I'm not an Oklahoma fan, and now I'm going to go on a basketball rant. But again, it's felt like they've been there forever because it felt like they were talking about Houston going into the Big 12 while watching a lot of Houston basketball, right? David Mitchell, all those guys. But beside the point, I love that team, by the way. So, I want to talk about the four-star transfer from Wisconsin, tight end Tanner Kozel. I'm not sure how to say that, but coming in from Wisconsin, I thought this is one that Colorado was going to go after because they needed a tight end. And this dude, I just looked and I was like, this dude is 6'7", 240 pounds. Like, holy cow. Yeah, Colorado, please go get him. He ends up going to Houston. What have you seen so far with him? I know that you said there's a lot of split zone. Or are they using him, in that split zone to come across to kick out that end?
And he comes in blocks, and I mean, any defensive coordinator with any worth is going to be able to point out that he can then like fake block and do a rollout kind of thing too. I'm sure. Look, he's the leading pass catcher on the team through 2 games, and he's listed 6'7", 240. If you told me 6'8", 250, I'd believe you. He's a giant, and he's a real giant, big catch radius, and not because he's putting up tremendous stats. He is leading Houston in receptions, like I pointed out. The guy's a pro. They just don't make guys like that move like that all that often. He's going to get a shot. He's got 13 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown through 2 games. And that's 2 games where they didn't have to throw the ball a whole lot, right? And so he's target number 1 thus far. He's run a lot of stuff inside of that, 5 to 15 yard area. I've been pushing on my own show to get him more the 10 to 20 yard area. Let's make sure we get across the sticks. But he's generally a check down. He kind of always open kind of option. He had the first touchdown of the season on a motion before the snap where he creates a mismatch because you're not going to put a corner on him when he goes out and runs a route. He had 94 catches a year ago. He's really is a 100 catch threat this year, I think. And you don't want to put a corner on a guy, even if he is that kind of a pass threat, because he is a giant. So it changes up what defenses do. Frankly, I'd be interested to see what Colorado does as a team that, unlike Rice or Stephen F. Austin, probably has athletes that can figure something out, right? Rice, they had no one that could match up with him. Stephen F. Austin had no one that could match up with him in man coverage. I don't know what there's actually a 6'7" option at Colorado, but I'd imagine there's some sort of a thought like, hey, we can bracket this, we can do that, we'll be fine. Or at least they can coach it like they will be. And it makes me interested to see what they do because Rice and Stephen Austin can do anything.
No, absolutely. And one, there's, like you said, there's nobody on Colorado that is going to be able to man up with him. I don't think there's, outside of maybe a couple players that can match up with a 6'7", possibly 6'8", 250-pound tight end running
giant.
down there.
He's really big.
Yeah, I don't know who matches up well with that. My initial thought, and again, Colorado runs a lot of man. You're going to see a lot of cover 4-2-5 look. They run a ton of man. I don't know. Initially I want to think, well, maybe DJ McKinney, right? He's supposed to be one of the first 3 corners taken in the draft. I don't know. He's about 6'2". But again, he's nowhere near that. He's just going to get out physical right there, because this is a gigantic human being. And again, that is athletic as can be. Have they used him in any set just on the goal line, whatever it is, down there in the red zone, just go throw it up, Connor? Tanner's going to just go get it. Like,
hadn't had to throw a fade ball. His touchdown, again, first touchdown of the year, he started in line or kind of, I guess he was off the line of scrimmage, but like toes to heel of the tackle and motioned out towards the receiver area. Well, you see the linebacker pointing like a corner supposed to go motion with him. The corner's like, nuh-uh. and he was actually wide open in the end zone. And so it just was a miscommunication Stephen F. Austin had because they didn't know what the coverage was supposed to be. They see a 6'8" or 6'7" guy motioning out to outside receiver. And they're like, well, what do we do here? I think Colorado will be more ready for it than that. But he's like I said, he had 94 catches and 8 touchdowns a year ago. And he's a pro. They just don't make guys that big that do all those things all that often. And it's really unique. That doesn't mean that he's like gonna, be an impossible mismatch, but just mean like the same way that any pro football player will stick out on the field. He looks different. He looks different.
Yeah, and he's right. All the attributes are there. 6'7" is, like you said, that is regardless of what he does on the. Somebody goes and sees him starts running around at the combine, right? The NFL combine, whatever, and they're like, that dude's. But he does have the production, right? So, I was just curious about that. That was one that I wanted the Buffs to grab this offseason. And luckily we get to play him in week 3 here. So, but yeah, and then, just talking about the offense, who is one guy that we haven't talked about, that I haven't brought up, or even is getting enough attention that, Colorado fans should be on high alert for, or, hey, that's who Parker was talking about. Like, who is that? Who's that one guy?
I don't know which receiver to point this in the direction of because they haven't had to throw the ball a lot, right? And so part of me wants to say like Amari Thomas, the transfer from USF, has honestly had a pretty clear connection with Connor Wigman. They seem to be on the same page. They transferred at the same time. That makes sense. Stephon Boogie Johnson, the leading receiver from a year ago. He caught the Hail Mary that beat West Virginia 2 years ago. He's a Houston guy. He's one of those guys that was really excited to see Connor show up. He's only had one touchdown pass. Only one reception. It was a 70-yard touchdown pass, right? And, does he get loose and get going? I could see a couple of those guys breaking loose. Kobe Young actually does not have a catch on the season this year. A couple big blocks in the run game. Kobe's a guy that we're super excited about at high school. 4-star kid out of New Orleans, came in last year, took an injury red shirt with an ankle thing. I don't know if he had to sit out the whole year or not, but they certainly made it a full year injury red shirt his freshman year. And this year, everyone's raving about him at practice. The camp film's great. He just hadn't gotten into the action much. Is this the week he breaks out? There will be somebody. I both wish I could tell you who it was because that would mean I know who it was. But I have no idea, and I'm sure that Willie Fritz would rather be like that, right? That people from the outside maybe don't know who the person is.